Hey guys, welcome to this video. In this tutorial, we're going to be building 6 different Python projects. So these projects are going to be a little bit above the beginners level, so you can consider them as intermediate Python projects. So right here, I have the list of projects which we're going to be building. So as you can see, there are 6 projects right here that we're going to be building in this tutorial. So guys, if you like more tutorial like this, don't forget to check out my channel at Code with Tomi, where I teach more on Python. So having that said, let's dive straight into this video. Hey guys, welcome to this tutorial. So in this tutorial, we're going to be using web scraping to get the image link of the profile image of a particular GitHub account, or let's say GitHub user. So what this program is going to be doing is that it's going to ask a user to input the username of a particular GitHub account, and then it's going to return back to that same user the image link to the profile image of that account in which the user input. So let's visualize this. Right here, I have my own GitHub account. So this right here is my username, where you see Tomi Toko. Or you can also come to the URL. Here you can see that's my username. So this is what we're expecting from a user. So once a user inputs this username, what it's going to get is a link to this profile image. So once the user clicks on that link, it takes the user automatically to the profile image. So let me show you an output of what we're going to be building. Right here, you see it says input GitHub user. I'm just going to input Tomi Toko. Now you can see it gives me this link. Now once I click on this link and hit open link, you can see it takes me to the profile image of that GitHub account. Now we can do this for various things. We can, let's say, once a user gives us the username, we can tell the user how many followers that particular user have, or we can tell the user the amount of repositories or the Twitter handle, or anything actually. We can do it with web scraping. So this is a little bit above the basics of Python. That's why I decided to teach this in this video. So on web scraping, before we start with web scraping, we need two things, which are requests and BS4. Now these things are Python libraries. These are the most popular Python libraries used in web scraping. They make web scraping a lot easier to implement in whatever you are building. So as I said, they are Python libraries. When we want to use a Python library that is not built in with Python, we need to install it using pip, or manually install it, or however you install your libraries. But in this video, I'm going to use pip to install requests and BS4. Now to do this, I'm going to say pip install requests. Now this is gonna return to me requirement already satisfied. As you can see, it says requirement already satisfied. That's because I already have it installed. And the next thing I want to install is pip install bs4. Now this command line is also gonna install this bs4. Now this bs4 is let me say, is a library. But what we need mainly from this BS4 is beautiful soup 4, or beautiful soup only. So now let me just close this terminal. We have these two libraries installed now. What do we want to do? We want to start coding. Now we want to use these libraries in this code. So the first thing we need to do is to import those libraries. So I'm going to say import requests, and then the next thing I'm going to do is to say from BS4, which we installed, I want to import beautiful soup. But as you can see, this beautiful soup is kind of long to type most of the times in our code. I can just say asbs. Now what this asbs does is that once we import this beautiful soup function or class or whatever from this library, whenever I want to use it in our code, we can just simply type bs instead of typing beautiful soup. So I'm going to show you what I mean later in this session. So now I've imported that. What I just want to do now is to assign a new variable, and this variable is what is going to collect the GitHub user. So I'm going to say GitHub underscore user. should be equals to input. I'm just going to tell the user to input GitHub user. Now, once a user inputs GitHub user, let's say my username, which is Tomi Toko, is going to be saved in this variable. Now that we have the GitHub user that the user wants to find, now web scraping, there are some steps you need to do whenever you want to perform web scraping. The first thing you need to do is to send a request to that URL, and as we know, the URL is going to be this GitHub URL with the username, the whatever our user inputs. So we're going to send a request to that page, and then we're going to get a response of 200, which means the request was successful. Now when we send a request to that page, what is going to happen is that we're going to get the whole HTML code of that page. Now once we get the whole HTML code of that page, we can easily get any data we are looking for. Now let's first send a request to that page. So let's specify URL. This URL is the page we want to send a request to. So as we know, it is https github.com/. Now I can just easily say /Tomi Toko, but once I say /Tomi Toko, it's gonna be giving me only my own profile image, but that's not what I want. What I want is that it should give me the profile image of whatever our user inputs. So now I'm gonna make it dynamic by inputting this variable using concatenation. So I say https github.com/GitHub user, which is this variable, which is what the user inputs. So if the user inputs any other thing, it's gonna get to that specific URL and then get a response. Now let's send the request. So I'll say r equals to requests dot get URL. So now this is gonna send a request to this URL, which is the URL of the user input, if that makes sense. So after getting this, the next thing we need to do is to say soup equals to bs. Now right here, normally we're supposed to say equals to beautiful soup or something like that, but because we've already imported beautiful soup as bs, we can just easily say bs and then r.content, which is this request. So we sent a request. If we just say r instead of r.content, it's just gonna give us the request. Let's say the response was 200, or the response was 200 means okay, or the response was an error or something. Now if I click here, you see it says r is a response, but when I say .content, now this is basically the HTML source code, everything on that page, the content on that URL. So now, and then I'm gonna say html.parser, parse it into an HTML code. So now that we have everything, all the HTML on this page, we have it saved in this soup variable. It's very easy, right? What we just need to do is to just basically print or get that specific image, and we know this image will be in a tag, in an image tag. If you're familiar with HTML, you will understand what I mean. Now we're just gonna say profile underscore image should be equals to soup.find. Now here I need to explain a little bit further. Now soup.find means from this HTML code we have find a specific tag with a specific class or with a specific attribute or something. Now when I come back here, I'm going to right click on this my image, and then I'm going to scroll down to where I see inspect. I hit inspect, and what do I see? I see an HTML code of this page, but because I right click on this image, it's going to take me to the HTML code of that specific image. So now I have what I'm looking for. I know that it is an the URL to this my image. As you can see, this is the URL. It's in an image tag, and the attribute is in an src. So it's an image tag, it has an alt of avatar, and then the src is where the image link is being hidden. So It's very easy now. I know that it's in an img tag right here. That's what we know. And then let's give it some more information so it knows exactly what we're looking for, because this can also be an image tag, as in can also be an image. This can also be an image, this can be an image, anything can be an image. If we give it just only this image, it's gonna give us back all the images we have on that page. But what are we looking for? We're looking for this profile image. So let's give our code some more information. So now let's look for another information. We can say the image tag, which has an alt of avatar. We know avatar also means your profile image or your display picture or something like that. So we're just gonna say comma curly braces. It has an alt that is equals to avatar. Now we know what we're looking for. So now this particular tag is being placed in this profile image variable. If I print this profile image variable, I'm going to get the whole of this HTML tag. But as you know, that's not what we're looking for. What we're looking for is only this link. So what I'm just going to do, give it a little bit of more information. After the whole code on that line, I'm just going to say get the src attributes, which is where the link is, src. So from that tag, get the src attributes. Easy. And after that, I can just print profile image. Now this is all the code we need to write for this our Python program. I hope you understood everything we did. So let me run it and let's check it. Okay, let's delete this terminal to make things easier and run again. Okay, good. Now it tells us to input GitHub user. I'm just gonna input my username, and then let's wait. You can see now that it just prints the image link to this username. So once I open this, I open the link. Now you can see it gives me the link to my profile image, which is very good, which is what we want. So we've built this program. Let me just quickly have a quick recap of what we did. So I said from the beginning, we need two libraries for web scraping. There are also countless libraries we can use for this, but this is the easiest to implement and to get started with as a beginner in web scraping. So we say import requests, which is the first library we need. I will say from bs4 import beautiful soup as bs, which I explained why we put as bs, which is just to make it smaller to type instead of typing beautiful soup. Now we added a new variable which was GitHub user, and then this GitHub user collected the username of the GitHub profile we want to get the image link of, and then we specify the URL, which is github.com/that user, and then we sent a request to that URL. And then once we got the response, we use beautiful soup to get the particular HTML source code. After doing that, we now got the profile image. So soup.find image tag alt, which is avatar, give me the src, which is the source. And then once we have that in this profile image, we just print it to the user. Very good, very understandable. Now I hope you got what we did in this tutorial. Hey guys, welcome to this tutorial. In this tutorial session, we're going to be building a Python program that is going to bulk rename all the files in a folder. So what we're going to be building is like a bulk renamer Python program. So this program is going to go into a particular folder on our desktop, and then it's going to rename all the files present in that folder to whatever we give it. So I would have loved to show you the output before we start coding, but there is no way to do that without having the code right there already. So let's just go ahead with the coding first, and we'll see the output when we're done. So let me just go into the folder. So right here in this folder, I have 3 images with different names. So the Python program is going to come into this folder and then rename everything to, let's say, images 0, images 1. This one might be img0, img1, img2. Accordingly, that's how it's gonna rename. So it's a bulk renamer, let me say, program. Let's go ahead and do this. So we're just gonna import our OS just for Python to know the operating system we are using. So now that Python, we've imported OS, we're going to create a function that is going to rename multiple files, because as I said, this program is going to rename all the files present in that folder. So it might be 1, it might be 2, so multiple. Now we're going to set I equals to 0. Now as a default, it sees that the let me say all the files in that folder is 0. So that's why we set I equals 0. Before we do this, we first have to have our function. So this I should be in our function. So this is our function. We can name it main. That's the main function. It doesn't have to take any parameter. So now I is equals to 0. And then we have to specify the path. Now this path is the directory in which the folder is. So I'm gonna come to this folder right here, just something like a bar, like a directory bar. We're gonna copy it, we come back here and paste. So right now this is it's just like a URL, you know, www.something.com. so this is just the local directory where Python is gonna go find our folder. But as you can see, automatically, or let me say in default, when I copied the directory link or something like that, it gives me in front slash. So when I'm done and I run this while this is still in front slash, we're gonna get a Unicode error. So we need to change all of these. Everything like this is in a backslash. Sorry for that mistake, but we need to change all of this to a front slash. So like this, we need to change everything to a front slash, and then the last one to a front slash. Now Python knows where to go get all these files from. Now we're just going to use a for loop to loop through the whole file. So say for file name in os.list there of path. So it's getting all the files in this part and storing it as a list. So now we're just gonna say my underscore dist, let's just leave it as this variable, should be equals to. Now what do we want to save it as? Let's just save everything as img, something like img0, img1, img2. So say img plus a string I, then plus .jpg. We want to save everything as a JPG file. We can save it as a PNG, we can save it as TIF, anything we want, but yeah, we want to save it as JPG. So if you try to get what I just wrote here, this is a variable, yeah. So in this variable, well, the name is gonna be img plus string I. So as I said, this I, it sees the default as 0, but since we're looping through everything, it's gonna get it from 0, 1, 2. So it's gonna be img, that I for this first one is gonna be 0, so it's gonna be img0 dot jpg. So it's still gonna remain .jpg. So when we run this, you're gonna understand the concept I used right here. So now we can just simply say my source should be equals to path plus file name, and then let's now say my dist should now be equals to path plus my dist again. So right now let's just rename the function with everything we've done. We'll just say os.rename my source my dist. So now this is just renaming it, and then we increase it. So we say this I, we have to increase it as it's looping through each of it. So say I plus equals 1, or we can also say I equals I plus 1 or something like that, but this is okay. So then after doing this, we need to run this function immediately the Python program is being run. So we say if underscore name underscore equals to underscore main underscore, then we put a column, and right here we just call our main function. Now this is good. Now I'm just going to save this file. If I come back here and let me just refresh this same directory, you can see that it still has this name. But now when I come to my code and then I run my code, now you can see here it gives me an error. So what does it say? It says file not found. The system cannot find the file specified. So it can't find this file exactly. What is it looking for now? You can see it's looking for c/tests img0. So there is a problem with the link between the path. Is trying to find a file named path. So what we need to do is to make sure that there is no problem right here. So let's quickly scroll down a little bit, and then right here what we can just do, let's just make sure there's no problem. So os.rename my source comma my dest. Now this is just making sure there's no problem, and then everything is a string here. So let's start from here using a for loop for file name in os.list there. So okay, now where the problem is coming from is this. Let's run it again. You see it's still gonna give us that same error. So right here, whenever you are using let me say a directory, as I said, first of all we need to change it to front slash, and then we must make sure that at the ending we also add another front slash. Now when we run this, I'm not going to have any errors, and everything right here is going to be renamed to img0, img1, img2, none like that. So now let's try to do this. We run it. It doesn't give us anything right here, as you can see. But when I come here, you see everything has been renamed. img0, img1, img2. .jpg. Now this is how to basically bulk rename all the files in a particular let me say in a particular folder. Now I can change everything again. Let me just cancel that. Instead of img, now I can say image, and I can just let me still leave it as jpeg. So now I change everything to image. I know what I want to do. I want to make this more, so I'm just gonna make it a lot of files. So now you can see we have all those files. I think we have 13 right here now. And then once I just run this, first of all you see everything is img0, img1, img2 copy. Now all this is going to be renamed from this. When I run it now, just want to make sure that so it's run without any error. Now you see img0, image 0, image 1, 2, 3, all the way to 12. Now that is how to bulk rename using a Python program. So let's go through what we did in this tutorial. So we imported OS, which is going to allow us to get our operating system if we're on a Windows or on a Mac, if we're on a Linux or whatever. Then we just used a function, we gave it main, and then we said I equals to 0. Then we said the path should be equals to the directory which we are looking for, and then we use the for loop to loop through everything. My dest, this is my dest, so like my destination or something like that. The final name which we want to name it, we gave it that particular format. Then we just used all this to make sure we pass it, and then we use os.rename to rename it. And then after doing for 1, we increase I by 1. We loop through again all the old files, and then we now use this if statement to make sure that immediately we run this program, it automatically calls this function. Now that's what we did in this tutorial session. I hope you understood it. I hope you get the concept of renaming bulk files in Python. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to this tutorial. So in this session, we're gonna be building a weather app. So this weather program is gonna tell you the current weather situation in a particular city or a particular location or country or a town. So what we're gonna be building is a program that is gonna ask a user to input, let's say, a city or a town or any location, and then it's going to return to that user details of the weather situation in that location. So let's say, for example, a user inputs London. It's going to tell the user, first of all, where London is located and then the current weather situation right there. So for us to do this, we're going to be using the Open Maps Weather API. Open Weather Maps API. So when I come here, this is their website, openweathermaps.org. All you just need to do is to sign up. So when you sign up, you log in, then you come straight to API keys. Then you're gonna see that you have this default key. So once you have the default key, we're gonna copy it and then use it in our code later. But for now, let's start with the code. Just make sure you have the API key first of all, then you can follow along. So now, what we just need to do is to import requests. Now, this request is a Python library for sending requests to any website. So we are using the API of this website. We have to use requests to send requests to that website. And if you don't have this, just install it by saying pip install requests in your terminal. So now, we're also going to import something named prettyprint from pprint import pprint. So when we send a request to this page, it's gonna give us a response in a JSON format. So when we have that response in a JSON format, it's always not so easy to visualize or to read. So this prettyprint library is gonna turn that JSON format into like a tree, a word tree or a dictionary tree in which we are going to be able to read normally. So after that, what we just need to do is to specify a new variable and name it API key. So something like this. Let's leave it blank for now. And then let's add a new variable and name it city. So this will be an input from the user. And then we're going to tell the user to enter a city. So now, once we have whatever the user inputs, let's just say base URL, which is the URL we're going to send a response to. Then I'm going to paste this. So this is the URL which we're going to send a response to. But whenever we're sending this response to this URL, we need to send it with our API key. And we also need to send a response with the city we want to get a response from. So we're sending a request to this URL with our API key and the city, and then we're going to get a response. So I'm just going to say plus the API key. So before plus API key, this is the normal URL. Then let's add a parameter by using this, and we'll say app ID is equals to API key like this. So we're just concatenating and making it a perfect URL. So now let's continue with the concatenation by saying plus, and then let's say and Q, which is the query or search or something like that. Then it's now the city, so whatever the user input. Now let's say weather underscore data equals to requests dot get. Right here, let's make sure we're using the right thing. Requests dot get base URL dot JSON. So now request.get the base URL.json. As I said, we're going to get a response from that URL and it's going to have to be in a JSON format. So now we have everything we need about this current city in a JSON format. But let's use prettyprint to make sure that it is readable and it makes sense. So say print weather data. So this is gonna print the weather data. Now let's run this program. Right here it says I should enter a city. I enter London. Now you can see it says invalid API. And why is that? Because right here in the code, let me quit this, I said we should leave the API blank for now. So let me go there and copy my API. This is my API key, and paste it there. So remember I said we need this API key. So that's why you have to come here, create an account, log in, come here to API keys, and then get your API. Now when we run this, we won't get any error. And then let's say London. Now you can see that it gives me information about the weather situation in London. So right here, enter a city, London, base station, so cloud, it's giving me all this, the coordinates, latitude and longitude, it's giving me all this. So right here it feels like 273.63. the humidity, the pressure, the temperature max and minimum, the name, the country, the ID, the sunrise, the sunset, the type, the time zone, the weather, description, the weather is mists and mainly mists. So the wind is 60 and the speed is 4.12. So it's giving me all this information which I need. So this is how to use Open Weather Maps API to get the current weather situation in any city in the world. Now we can try this for other cities. Now let me just run this program again. So enter a city. Let me enter a city like Delhi. Now enter Delhi in India. Now I have this, and it also gives me everything I need to know about Delhi. As you can see, it says it's from India. So this is basically how to use this Open Weather Maps API. Get it in a JSON format, print it, and then you can implement it. Let's say you are building a web application, a GUI app, mobile app, anything you're doing, you can use this Python program to implement it in your application. Now let's go over what we did. This is pretty simple. We just imported requests, we imported print, we got our API key from here, we use the city variable as an input, we make sure we specify the URL, then weather data, we send a request to that URL, and then we got a response and store that response in weather data, and then we just printed it. That was simply all we did. Now that's gonna be all for the weather with Python. Hey guys, in this tutorial we're going to be building a countdown timer program using Python. Now this program is not too, or this project is not too advanced, is a little above the basics. The reason why I'm just teaching this is just to show you how to use the while loop concept in some more advanced projects in Python. So we're going to use while loop to do this, and then we're also going to use a Python library called time. So before we go into coding, let me show you the output or the final product of what we're going to be building. So you can see here it says enter the time in seconds. So this our program is going to ask a user for the amount of seconds he wants to count down to. If it's 10 seconds, if it's just 1 second, if it's 5 seconds, it's going to count from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, a normal countdown. And then after that, it's going to print a message, let's say like countdown done, or go for a run or something like that. So let me show you how this works. So now I say 3 seconds. I hit enter, it says 3, 2, 1, and it says go for a run now. Now I can print any message there. I can make, let's say countdown done, or throw up the fireworks now, or something like that. So this is how to build a basic countdown timer using Python. Let's get straight into it. So now I'm just gonna quit this terminal, and the first thing I need to do, as I said, I'm going to be importing time. Time is a Python library used whenever we're dealing with time, obviously. So we'll say import time. Now after importing time, I'm going to create a new function and I'm going to name it countdown. This function is going to be what is going to be handling everything concerning the countdown. So I'm just going to say def countdown, and I want this function to take in a parameter called t. Now this t should be the amount of seconds in which a user wants to count down to. So we'll put in our column, and then we'll say while t, and then we're just going to say minutes, comma second, scs should be equals to divmod. Now I usually call this div mode, or I don't know, I just say divmod, and I put t in a matter of 60 seconds. So this 60 seconds is telling you we're using the seconds to count down. And now we'll say timer should be equals to code, then we'll put curly braces, column, and then 0 to d. And then what I need to do now is to put a column after this, another curly braces, and then I'm just going to say 0 to d again. And then after this, I'm going to say dot format minutes, comma seconds. And then what I just want to do is to just print timer, and then end should be equals to \r. Now this is just the format or the syntax or the way we build this project. Now I can say time dot sleep, and I can give it 1. So after 1, it should be done. Then t minus equals 1. Then after this timer is done, I can just say print timer completed or something else. Now after this, what I just need to do now is to ask the user to input the amount of seconds. Say t should be equals to input, enter the time in seconds. So I want to ask the user for the amount of time, and then after I know that, I'm just gonna call that function, that countdown function. I'm gonna give it the parameter int t. Now I'm giving it a parameter of t, but I'm making sure that t is first of all an integer before passing it into this function. Now this is all we need to build this simple program. Now let's quickly go through everything we just did. First of all, I imported time, which I said is the library which deals with everything about time in Python. If you're working with seconds, minutes, hours, days, months, years, time can do everything. If you want to get the current time, let's say the current dates and time, that library can do everything you need. Well, now we are working on a countdown. So once we have that time, you just define a new function and named it countdown, and we made it to take in a parameter which is t, and then here it's saying t as a string, but we are making sure that whenever we are calling that function, we are using it as an integer just to avoid any errors. So now, after assigning or defining that function, give it t. T is the amount of seconds. So say while t, this while means as long as t is still available. Then we just want to say means sex equals to div mode t60, which is an integer. Then timer, then we just give it this format. Then we say dot format into minutes and seconds. So then we just want to print this timer and end with a \r. Now these are just the parameters or attributes that this time library needs. So it's not something you need to, let me say, put on your head. If you just have a notebook or something, you can just write it down and then keep using it whenever you need to. So now we can say time.sleep once it's done, and then time minus equals 1. So once everything we're done with configuring the countdown, we can just simply print timer completed. So the function is done. We're done with the function. Then we just add a new variable named t, and then we told the user to input the time in seconds. So if the user input 60 seconds, it's gonna count 60 seconds. If the user input 50, it's gonna count 50. Then we just call that function once we know what the user wants. Countdown integer t. Now we run this. When we run this, it should ask us for the amount of time we want to count down in seconds. So let's wait for this to run. This should be up and running within some seconds. Okay, nice. So down here, okay, down here it says enter the time in seconds. So let me enter 8 seconds. I hit enter. So right here it says key error, which is O02D. Now if we come back up here, it says there's an error on line 15 when calling that function, and then on line 6. So the error is actually coming from here. Now the reason why there's an error is simply because we didn't add a column between 0 to D. So this is the format of time. When we're dealing with this time library, we need to do everything in the right syntax. So whenever you are using 0 to D, the first one represents the minutes, the second one represents the seconds. So you must make sure to also add this column. Now this was the reason we are getting this error. Let's quit this terminal and run it again. Now we shouldn't be having any errors this time around. Now you can see it says enter the time in seconds. We say 8, and then now it starts counting. Says 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It says time completed. Now this is how to build a countdown timer using while loop in Python. Hey guys, so in this tutorial session we're going to be building a password generator program. So this Python program is just going to generate a very strong password for a user. Now let's say a user comes to this program, and then it's gonna like put in the amount of password he wants to generate, and then it's gonna generate, let's say the user puts in 9, and then he wants to generate a password with 9 characters. It's gonna generate 9 password with 9 characters. So let me visualize what we're gonna do. So this is the end product of what we want to build now, the output. You see it says number of passwords. Now in here, if I type 7, so that means I want to get 7 passwords, 7 different passwords. And it says password length. You know, different sites, let's say you want to create a password for, you want to create a new account on a site, and then you don't know what password to use. So this our program can randomly create a very strong password for a user. So now different sites has different password characters they need. So now let's say this our platform requires a character of 7, or let me say 8 at least. So if I put 8, it's gonna generate 7 different random passwords with 8 characters each. And when I click enter, you see it says here are your passwords. As you can see, it gives me all these random passwords that are 8 characters long. Now this is what we're gonna be doing in this tutorial session. Now you can see that this is not too advanced for a Python project, but it kind of teaches some things you need to know working with Python. So let's just get into that. So let me close up this terminal right here. Now what I want to do, we're going to import a Python library called random. Now this Python library, we don't need to install it. It's built in with Python. So all I just need to do is to say import random. Now once I have this imported, what I need to do next now, I can just print to the user. I can do something like this. Print password generator. Let's say welcome to your password generator. So now this is just telling the user that this is a password generator. And then the next thing we're gonna do is to just simply assign a new variable. So it's gonna have something like chars. Now this chars is a string, but what is in this string is random characters, very random characters. So we're gonna have this variable called chars. What is gonna be in here is letter A to Z in small letter, letter A to Z in capital letters. We're also going to have some random symbols, and we're also going to have 0 to 9. So we're going to compile all this into one string, and then our password generator is just going to randomly pick different characters and mix it up and provide our password. So you're going to understand this in a bit. Let's just continue with what we're doing. So these characters, let me just paste in what we're going to put. So now I pasted this in. Right here you see it says A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. So right here it lists from A to Z in small letters. The same thing it does here, A, B, C all the way to Z, but now in capital letters. And right here you see that we just have some symbols all to this place. And from here we have 0 to 9. So we just mixed up all these different characters together so that our password generator program can randomly pick any amount from this long character and give us a strong password, strong and unique password to be precise. So now that we have that, the next thing we need to do is to have a new variable and name it number. Now this number is gonna be a variable which takes the amount of passwords a user wants to generate. Let's say a user needs 5 passwords or 6 different passwords. Now this variable is gonna be what is gonna tell us how many passwords should we generate. So now it's just gonna be a simple input, and then I can just simply say input amount of passwords to generate. So now this is gonna, as I explained earlier, tell us the amount of password the user wants to generate. And I want to make sure that I convert this to an integer, because when I'm using it in my function we must see this as an integer. So because we want to get the amount of something, which is a number, so it needs to be an integer. If it's a string, it's gonna throw us a type error. So let's say integer of number. Now we have to collect another variable, and this one should be length. And now this length should be the length of the password. Let's say the user wants 7 characters or 8 characters. This variable is gonna collect it. Let me say your password length. Sorry about that. So let me just write something like input. So this is also another variable telling the user to input the password length, and I also want to make sure to make this an integer, because as I explained, we're getting the amount of something, the amount of a particular value. So we want to make sure it's an integer, so when we're using it in our function, it gets it as an integer. So now once we have everything we need from the user, let's just print to the user, here are your passwords. So now this is just showing the user, here are your passwords. So after this, we're going to use a for loop to now first of all get all the passwords the user needs and then print it to the user. So after here are your passwords, what should be next is obviously the passwords. So now it's a very simple for loop, very easy one. I'm just going to say for pwd, it means password, just shorten it to pwd, in range. And note, this pwd can be anything. It can be for P, it can be for D, it can be for passwords and full, anything. Now I just use that there just to denote password because it makes more sense, but that is not a specific let's say it's not a must that must be PWD. So that's just a basic concept of for loop. So for PWD in range of number, so we're getting the range of this number variable right here. So what we want to do is to set a new variable and name it password. So now these passwords, we're going to leave it empty for now. And then after passwords, another for loop. So it's like a nested loop. We'll say for C in range of length. Now what we want to do, we'll say password plus, say passwords plus equals random dot choice, and then we'll give it this character variable. So what this is doing is we are adding random dot choice to this password variable we set right here. So random dot choice is this we imported. Remember, we imported random. Now this is just a Python module or library which gets the random text from a particular string. So we're saying random dot choice from this character string, which is this. So it's just gonna get random characters from this string, and then once it has it, it's just gonna pass it into this variable which we assigned earlier. So after doing this, now you know what we just want to do, just print passwords. As easy as that. Now this is a very easy way to build a simple password generator program using Python. Let's run it and see the output. Now we run it. Let me quickly kill this terminal. We run this. Let me increase it. So now it says welcome to your password generator. It asks for the amount of password to generate. Let's just generate one, and then input your password length. We want the amount of characters in the password to be 9. Now when we hit enter, it says here are your passwords. Now you see it gives me this password. If I count it, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. Now it gives me this very random and strong password from our program. So it's just automatically generating a password. Now I hope you understood what we did in this video, because it's a very cool project which you can implement, let's say, into your GUI application or your web application or anything you're doing. So this is just how to generate a random password from or using Python. So guys, in this tutorial section, we're going to be talking about encoding and decoding QR code in Python. So let's first start with encoding QR code. What I mean by encoding QR code is just creating a QR code using Python. That means creating a QR code and then filling in some data with that QR code. So when we later decode that QR code, it's going to give us back that data. So now, whenever we want to create a QR code in Python, there are various Python libraries you can use. But for this video, we're going to be using QR code library. So we first need to make sure we have QR code installed. Let's open up a new terminal. And then, okay, I have an existing terminal. So I'm just going to say pip install QR code. Now this command line is going to install QR code, but for me it says requirement already satisfied because I have it installed already. So let's just go ahead and close that up. Right now what we just need to do is to import QR code like this. Now that we have QR code imported, we're going to have a new variable and name it data. So this data is going to be let's say whatever that QR code is gonna mean, like whatever that QR code, what the data we're going to encode into that QR code. So let's just say the data of this QR code is don't forget to subscribe. Also, we're dealing with Python, so we can't put this. Python, we see that we want to close it, so we have to put this backslash, and then we can now come here and then close it. So that's the data we want to include. Don't forget to subscribe. And now let's just encode the data into a new QR code. So I'll say I'll say img should be equals to QR code dot make, and then encode it with data. So it's going to encode it with this data variable, and then once we have that, we're just going to save it as an image file. So say image.save, and then we're going to save it. Come here, right here, we want to save it in this folder. So right here, we're just going to copy this particular folder, go back and paste it there. So we want to save it in this folder. And remember that anytime you are working with directories in Python, you need to change this to a front slash. It's always in backslash automatically, so we change it to a front slash. Same thing here, we have to change it to a front slash everywhere. So now that we have that done, so I want to save it to this directory, and we'll name it my QR code .png. So now this is gonna save it as my QR code.png. If I come here and refresh here, you see that it's empty. It's an empty folder. When I come here and then run this, now you see it doesn't give me anything right here. But if I come here, I now see a new picture named my QR code. So yeah, as you can see, it is a QR code image. So that is how to basically create a simple QR code. But now let's dive deeper. Let's say we want to customize our QR code more. Like we want to give it, let's say, a red coloring or a particular border size or something like that. So we're going to come back to our code. Let's close this up. And then we're going to leave the data the same. Don't forget to subscribe. And then what we're just going to do right here, let me just make sure I copy this so I don't need to write it again. So from here I can delete. So we're making our data the same. So what do we want to do? We just want to basically change the color and then change like the size, let's say the box size, the version of the QR code, the border and stuff like that. So let's create an instance of the QR code class. We'll say QR equals to QR code dot QR code, and then let's give it a version of 1. Let's say we want the version to be 1, and then box size, let's say box size should be 10, and then border should be like 5. So now we have that instance. Then we'll say QR dot add data of data. So it's just adding this data to the QR code we want to create with all this information also. And then let's say QR dot make fit equals true. And then we'll say img should be equals to QR dot make underscore image fill underscore color should be equals to red, and then I want the back color should be equals to white. like this. So now I have everything I want to configure, and I'm just gonna say image.save, and then we want to save it right here in this directory, and let's name it my QR code 1.png, so we don't have two files colliding. So we run this, it doesn't do anything in the terminal, but when we come here, now you see we have a new QR code, and if you can check, it's a little bit smaller. This is a little bit bigger. I don't want to open the pictures now, just to keep the video minimal. So as you can see, it is red and the other colors are white as we configured. So that is how to basically encode some data into a QR code and design the QR code however we want it. So now we've talked about encoding. Now let's talk about decoding the QR code. Now you know that we pass in this data, which is don't forget to subscribe, into our QR code. But what if we have this QR code already and then want to get whatever data is inside that QR code? Now how do we do this? Let's just delete all this. Now for us to decode a QR code, that means get the data written inside that QR code, we need a Python library called pyzbar. Now there are a lot of libraries you can use for this, but for this video and the one I use personally that I love is pyzbar. So you just need to say pip install pyzbar to install that, and then as you can see, it tells me requirement already satisfied because I have it. So right here I'm just gonna say from pyzbar.pyzbar import decode. So I'm going to import the decode function, and then I also want to import pillow. So you also need one more Python library called pillow. So you just need to say pip install pillow. So say from pil import image. So the pillow library, to install it, you say pip install pillow. But when you are importing, we'll say from pil import image. So now, what image do we want to get the data of? We'll say we'll store it in a variable. So we'll say image.open. Now we want it to open, paste it, my QR code.png, which is this first one. Since we want it to open that, it has opened it already and stored it in this img variable. So now we just say results. There's a new variable named results. Then we just decode that img which we opened. Now that we have everything, let's just print it to the screen. So results. Let's run this. You can see decoded data. Don't forget to subscribe. The type is QR code. You can also do it for barcode, you know, different types of codes. Rex, these are just telling us the width, the position, but that's not what we want. We just want data. Don't forget to subscribe. Now that is how to basically decode a QR code. Now it's not a must that is a QR code that you created. You can just take a QR code online and use this to decode it, you know, just for practice purposes. Yeah, so that is all about QR codes, encoding and decoding QR code with Python. So guys, that's gonna be all for this video. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, just drop it down in the comments. I'll make sure to answer all questions. Having that said, thank you so much for watching, and bye for now.